we'd like to quickly move into the panel part, and then after the panel part, we'll be able to invite you all upstairs for the break and that. So we're going to have to bring out the tables, and if I could ask all of our speakers to come back to the stage now. So that's Andre, Joost, Armin, George, Volker. Okay, Volker goes to the airport. Thank you, Volker. We enjoyed it very much. Gentlemen, please join me. We're going to bring out some tables here, so they'll be coming out, and we'll just align ourselves with the table. No particular order. This is a little bit random. I'm going to stand at the edge of this one. If you can move in a little bit, I think, do we need one more table? Are they bringing one more?
On it.
Oh,
on it.
There you are, sorry.
You have to put them more together. There are signs on the ground.
The marks are already good now.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yes.
Voila.
Yeah.
No accidents. Please, gentlemen.
On the marks.
Please keep it.
All right.
The marks are important for the live streaming, gentlemen.
Exactly.
We're not being difficult for the sake of being difficult. We're being difficult for the sake of the non-physical audience. Gentlemen, you all did wonderful speeches and presented a lot of good information. So it's going to be very hard to dig in. But Desiree is also going to invite the audience with their questions, and she'll interrupt at the appropriate time.
Exactly. You see the QR code again up there. If you have a question directly to one person on the panel or the whole panel, please send in your questions. I'll get them here because we're all smart. And I'll pick some out for the panel. Thank you very much for taking part.
So one of the things that's important about TransformIT, we're not trying to transform IT. What we're trying to say is that IT and going digital can help the other parts of the transformation. But we have here, and you could hear from your presentations, there's a number of different related industries that have to interact to make it happen. So we have, of course, IT. We have also construction industry. We also have the pumping industry, which is very significant, and of course the gentleman from Cree who is not here, but from that side of contributing to it. So the first question that I want to ask everyone is, how can data-driven solutions boost the efficiency and the impact of the buildings for the sustainability? And whichever gentleman wants to go first, just...
As you just said, we need modular open solutions platforms so that these different things can communicate with each other from the sensor up to the building with the pump and the building automation systems. All these things have to be connected, and so open, modular, standardized is absolutely important.
So again, one of the gentlemen was showing a slide of a red ocean. We're actually in a bloody ocean, right? I mean, the disparity is what we inherit, and there's no clear answer to the disparity except to connect it somehow. And that's where an ocean comes in. That's also where a KNX comes in. And again, the beneficiaries are the water pumps and everything else that can join in the connectivity. You're actually using both KNX and ocean, right?
Yes, we do. But we take basically all formats which we can use and use them. So we are not the ones who do the data connection. We are, let's say, listening to our customers and the customer needs, and we just make sure that our pumps can talk all languages.
You're the passenger on the interfaces,
yes.
So to speak, in that.
Yeah.
Joost?
I think it's a bit irrelevant which language a product speaks. All languages have their reason for being there. Mm-hmm. But the importance is that if you speak German or English or Chinese or whatever, that in the end the data can be interpreted, and that's what the word semantics is all about. I expressed that in my talk. KNX has put a lot of effort in making a ontology of its system, making it understandable for people who are not acquainted with KNX. And that is where systems need to migrate to, is not be a closed shop and say, okay, if you do things with KNX, everything will work, or things with an ocean, but being open towards sharing this data with other parties that use other language. Fair enough.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
Andre, from your point, you study the industry, and I should say thank you for bringing to us the example of the contribution of the universities who study these industries and how they intersect. But from your point of view, this process of a data-driven solution, how impactful is that?
Definitely, we work a lot of or do a lot of projects with housing companies, for example. And if you talk to them, they often don't really know what they have installed in their buildings. And if you go one step further, they don't know what their devices they have installed do and how they operate. And because of this, we think that measurement data and data in general in a high resolution can help to clear up the current status of the operation. So it's not just like you need IoT devices to connect outside the building. You need products, pumps connected via any kind of protocol to have an insight how your building and how your management systems operate. And for this, I think data is a very good information source.
And it wasn't brought up so much in the presentations, but I should say digital twin. And how significant is digital twin, across, your industries? Is it, for example, with digital twin, is that something that an ocean would find enabling?
Yeah, absolutely. For the digital twin, you need real-time data, and this real-time data have to be delivered by sensors. So yes, of course, the whole system, again, the whole ecosystem later on will generate a digital twin, learn from this digital twin by automated intelligence and artificial intelligence, and then with the data, you can then optimize the situation.
And I'm assuming in the pump
Sustainable.
industry, they're also concentrating on creating digital twins to maintenance and other things.
Yeah, of course, when you need a digital twin, however, it's not the glory in itself. I mean, it's a tool, we need to work on it. If you have it, it's good. If you don't have it, you can also survive. It should not be a hype thing for me. Let's say people talk too often about digital twins and believe this is it. It helps, it's a good tool. And I think it's a way on the let's say stepping up ecosystems. Let's say that is what I believe, and we use it as well. Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the big elephant in the room is of course the energy savings in buildings, and that there's a lot of different numbers that are being thrown around, and that what can we expect? In terms of energy saving, if we modernize, let's say we retrofit, because 80% of European buildings need retrofitting. So it's easier on a new building to get that savings. But what could we expect?
Public buildings, there has been a lot of research done, and 30% is a typical value for public buildings.
All right. Everyone agree with 30%? Approximately.
If you make sure that the pump is changed, yes.
If you buy a new pump. So 30%.
You
Yeah,
should.
this is
You
new
should.
to
I think
me.
that is it's a good point. Sorry that I need to jump in here.
Yeah.
Typically, what we hear is that because of the pumps are very reliable, they run for 40 years, sometimes 50 years. So customers typically say, well, I exchange it when it's broken. Unfortunately, it doesn't break.
Yeah.
So I think, and typically after 1 year, 2 years maximum, the return on invest is there. So it's just exchange it. This is so clear. But I think the dilemma is there always of the owner let's say, of the buildings and the user of the buildings. This dilemma we all have, let's say, that the interests are different.
I'm going to come to you, Joost, in one second, but I want to underline that point because one of the things we most often forget is that a building is a business. You know, there's an owner or a landlord, and there's also a paying tenant. And between the three of them, there has to be a money equation in order to make the technology work. Joost, did you have something to add? I saw you grabbing that microphone.
Yeah, yes, I think we are confronted out there with lots of buildings that are inefficient. I think in all the speeches here, it was very, very clear that we have a huge potential out there by indeed replacing things that are inefficient. But I think we should be careful that we put in place things that really last for a longer time, especially in buildings. I mean, if we go the way that consumer electronics are doing, like you have a new model of thing X.
I have to change my laptop every 3 years.
Yes, every 3 years, just throw it away and get a new one.
Yeah.
I think we are not going the sustainable path.
Right.
So we need to indeed, if we replace the pump, then it must be efficient, but it must be efficient for the next 30 years, unless there are even more efficient things to replace it.
Sounds very true, rings very true to me. I'm sure everyone, I can tell by the shaking heads that we all agree with that. But coming to that point, you know, there are inhibitors, you know, and some of them are technological, some of them are financial, you know, some of them are related on the peripheral. But what inhibitors do you feel are holding us back from doing more in the smartification, if I can use that, the intellification of the buildings?
Your legacy industry, those who are using or selling fossil energy, they look for each and any argument to go on with the existing situation. So there's the need for the governments
There's no incentive for the energy seller to save energy except to look like he's saving energy. You know, greenwashing. Okay. Other comments on inhibitors, things that are holding us back. Andre.
I would like to add the lack of knowledge about the building operations. We've heard pumps, for example, are installed in the basement or anywhere where you don't see them. And if you don't have data, you don't know what the pump does, what the pump consumes. And we often see it that the people really have no clue. They have a meter that measures the consumption of the whole building, but after that they don't know what subsystems or submeters do, and that's also a huge problem we see.
They have a TV show in Belgium where the wife reports that the husband is a klutz and can't fix anything, and they bring in extra help to help him. You know, I want to confess to being one of those klutz. And your presentation was so eye-opening to me, George, because I hadn't really. I'm in the smart building. I'm a journalist in the smart building, but I hadn't really focused on the importance of the pump. So excuse me, but it was a very good presentation. Inhibitors, other things
Bob,
there.
I'd have a question directly to George, since you just talked about his presentation. If exchanging existing pumps for the sake of energy efficiency is so favorable, could you please elaborate briefly in how or if you give these old pumps a second life?
Yeah, I think in principle, yes, we do that. We are recycling 100% of our pumps, by the way. This is first place, and we do that voluntarily. We even recycle pumps of competitors. So that is one thing. So there is no, let's say, we're not creating any waste. Now the point is, we do that as long as they are energy efficient. But if you get back a 40-year-old pump, it's like a VW Beetle. Of course, the VW Beetle runs forever, as it's said in the old days. But there is a moment that you say the 13 liters per 100 kilometer is too much. You want to go for a new technology. It's the same with pumps. I think the idea is like what we heard here a bit, and this is, I can tell you right off the records, like what we are thinking in terms of sustainability and future products. We basically want to have a pump where the mechanics runs 30 years, whatever. The hardware probably gets exchanged every 10, 15 years because of jumps in technology, and the software can be updated every time. So this is a bit the concept we think of. This is the way we should go in the industry. I think that plays in your hands. We need to do these technology jumps, but in principle, yes, this is what we also look into.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Now, what would we think to be the impact of one of the new trends in smart building is the occupant-centered building? You know, and this has been boosted by the COVID, of course, and we have a lot of discussions about now hybrid work with remote working combined with physical work. How do we think the occupant-centered building has changed or created a new direction in smart building? Andre, I'm going to turn to you for that question.
Okay, yes, what we've seen during COVID, there have been offices that haven't been occupied for months or even years. So 2020 or 2021, the offices have been completely empty, but you haven't seen any reduction in the energy consumption. So if you've plotted the data of energy consumption before COVID and during COVID, you haven't seen any difference. And for us, this was really a point where we said, that's really crazy, to be honest, that you don't have a dependency of energy consumption and occupancy. And what we see with the emerging interest and distribution of IoT sensors, which are cost-effective, you can have a much higher granularity and information from your building that you can use, for example, to reduce your heating system. And that's what I think this topic of occupant-centered control will move to, and will move out of the research stadium that it has been for the last, 10, 15 years.
Okay. Any other comments?
I absolutely agree. We have still 30% too much space in the offices.
Yeah.
I have just written in a study. Yes, and it's like you said, 24/7 heated. So.
There was a lot of damage by COVID. You can see even in Brussels, 25% of the buildings, a lot of them small businesses have never been replaced. You know, so they're empty buildings, and it certainly is not a smart building if it's an empty building. If I can underline that point. So.
Can I ask another question,
sure.
please? Zooming out to smart cities,
Yes.
for short, the audience was asking if you had especially good example for a smart city that think about as an example. Maybe all of you could answer this question. Starting maybe with you, George.
Yeah, I think I showed this Chinese one, Xiong'an, which is one of these single ones, and we have a few only, perhaps in Kazakhstan, Almaty, or in even Saudi, where cities are planned from scratch. I think this is very attracting what we could do. We have a lot of good examples. We saw that on the list of these European ones mainly, where you do little steps, but it's very difficult. I mean, think about the sewage systems of our typically 120, 150-year-old cities here in Europe. This is all leaking. I mean, we have drinking water losses in London of more than 15%. And we have more of that, and there's more to come even. So we need to think differently how we can overcome that one. It's much easier to plan a new one. And then I think then the thing is to get all the people together on one table and see how do we plan that. And because the interoperability between these systems, that is so crucial. Unbelievably crucial.
So, Andre, do you have a special example of a smart city that stands out to you?
As we are working mainly in the building area, our examples are always related to the buildings. But what we've seen, we have a cooperation with an energy supplier from the Ruhrgebiet, and he has installed gateways that connect IoT devices all over the city area. I don't know how large the city is. It's Gelsenkirchen, where Schalke 04 is located. So it's quite a larger city, and it's quite interesting that they really try to connect all kinds of devices, not only devices they need for themselves, but also they will allow occupants of the city to connect their devices and to have something like an open data platform. That is a very interesting topic or application that I see.
Thank you. Joost, do we have a favorite example?
Well, I'm not so smart in smart cities because I do smart buildings, but I do agree with earlier statements. We have, for instance, 2 train stations which are being modernized in Belgium. One of them being Ghent, one of them being Mechelen. You know it. It's very, very difficult during operation to modernize something. And that's what we need to do in Europe. We need to modernize while we're living in the things. This is extremely difficult, and that is hampering a little bit the modernization, absolutely.
I think all the more it's good to look at good examples to know where to grow. Yeah, Armin, what about you?
Yeah,
Favorite
also
smart
let's
city?
start with the buildings, with the single buildings. Yes, the new buildings is much easier, as Just said, but it's also easy to address the existing buildings, and it's more 99% if you assume that 100 years building will survive. So nearly 99% of existing buildings that have to be retrofitted.
But what's the city that
and
you
the
say?
smart city then is all the numbers, all the sum of all the buildings.
Yeah, but do you have an example for a smart city that you think about when you think of a smart city? Is there a city you think about?
Not yet.
That we have to determine that.
It's a difficult question because, a smart city can be smart in many different ways.
Yeah.
It's like a person can be smart. You can have emotional intelligence. You can have book intelligence or street smarts. But that's the same problem with smart cities. So I would have gone with a region. I'm going to say Middle East because a lot of it is new building. You take something like Dubai. To me, Dubai looks like the love child of New York and Las Vegas. But a lot of the building there, it is state of the art, brand new stuff where they have the opportunity to put in a lot of structure. But it also swings us back to, can you have smart government with dumb politicians? Yes, you can, because a lot of the political bodies, even in the towns where we have a lot of the retrofit buildings, are putting in the digitalization of what the government is doing, and therefore is making people's life easier, where they can not have to go to the town hall. They can just hit their mobile phone. And this is part of how a smart city, there are smart cities who define being smart only by their ability to extend the digitalization to the consumers, and they do nothing, physically in that, but, as I say, we all probably have different advantages, but I love the story of the new Beijing, and I'd like to go visit that because I thought Shenzhen was smart enough for me. More questions from the audience?
I indeed have one more,
Great,
if it's
let's
all
go with
right. Talking about a smart infrastructure this time. No system is inherently safe. By connecting our infrastructure at a larger scale, we are also expanding our vulnerability surface area. So how to approach the growing cybersecurity concerns? I think that's a huge one.
That's a huge one. Joost, I'm going to run right to you for cybersecurity, first of all.
Yes, I touched upon it during my talk. This is, as I said, 30 years ago, nobody cared. But of course, the more connected you are, the more vulnerable you are. And I think, compared to the efforts that, for instance, the EU puts in of actually imposing something for sustainability, I think they really put an effort into making us aware of our vulnerability as regards cybersecurity. I think the directives have been put in place. that will become effective in 2027, 28, CRA, Cyber Resilience Act. I think EU is really preparing us to
Trying to
think
help.
more and to do more for cyber resilience.
So first of all, it's awareness, and then it's taking action because we are aware now.
It's taking actions, yes, because this is a very, very important thing and pressures all product manufacturers now to update their systems. This is absolutely important, and yes, we have to follow
You're
them.
probably familiar in the Internet of Things. They actually have a very famous website that shows all the unprotected sites, which I thought in one way that's a great service, and another way that's handing somebody a great tool, where somebody
Also a great service for people who wouldn't use it the right way.
Exactly. And particularly people that don't remember that their pump may be, on, some sort of IP address, and it's unprotected, and there's a lot of, it's so easy to forget about what might be connected to your network.
Right.
That legislation perhaps is very useful there to push it along.
We put extreme efforts as KNX of actually making our customers, meaning the installers and the integrators, aware of the fact that they can put up networks that are vulnerable. Some of them, not because they don't want to know, but they don't know. They are not aware of it. Simply making them aware is already half the job.
And I think that point has brought up something else that helps to answer the audience question. The point, of the risk of cybersecurity, and as you grow larger systems, again, the companies are working with partners who are doing the installation and are engaging the customer. And it's a process of education of those partners. And it's important not that the manufacturer only, but that the whole ecosystem and chain embraces the cybersecurity concept.
Correct.
Okay. Audience, any more?
I'm done for now.
Okay. But I wanted to go back. There's still, one more question that I wanted to zing in on, and this is, the number shocked me. Only 6% of the legacy technology in a smart building is connected to the smartness. And this would seem to be, a terrible problem. Do we have any remedies or solutions, or how do we address this as an industry?
I would say we already have the technologies. We have gateways or PLCs or whatever, which enable us to have a secure communication from inside the building to outside. So it's not like that you need to completely renew your building automation system, to switch all sensors, actuators, and so on. You just need to have an interface which connects the old system, for example, to the internet or IoT or whatever you want to call it. So it's not like you need to switch off all components, but you can combine the best of both worlds and then have the classical system, which runs quite well inside of the building, and the availability to the cloud or IoT components.
And isn't the value also, the value to connecting up is the collection of the big data. The reason why we have so many sensors in buildings is to give us data and then create it into some sort of manageable form. But with only 6% hooked up, that's 94% where you're not getting data, where you're not helping yourself.
Good potential to address.
Yeah, it's an excellent potential. Somebody should come along and make a giant trade show in 2026 in Brussels to address
who could that
this.
be?
Really, somebody should. All right. Before I end the panel, I just wanted to come back to the all-in-one solution. A lot of people in the building on the owner side, say, "Oh, we should have a one-piece solution." Personally, I don't think it's working out. But how do you guys feel about all-in-one solutions for buildings?
All-in-one is inflexible.
Inflexible.
So as soon as the requirements are adapted, then you have problems. So modular platforms where you can expand the systems, where you can adapt to new requirements, like now the security, the cyber security, you have to be flexible.
Okay, Joost.
Yeah, I think one fits all, that's utopia. On this planet it is. I think no solution can cater for everything if we just focus on the building that can do everything in the building. Willow, for instance, is specializing in pumps, right? They have huge knowledge, know-how in pumps. So they should do what they do best, pumps.
Right.
So there's no one-fits-all thing. Everybody must collaborate so that data indeed can be gathered from everything and make the best of the data we collect from different things.
Right. So ultimately, the industry is not going to merge down to one giant Microsoft to solve every problem. We're going to have disparate solutions coming from lots of different sources, lots of different places, which have to be integrated. And, with that thought is also the underpinning part of the 2026 TransformIT Marketplace show. Then I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for being here and contributing to the panel today. If you just come together for a minute, because the photographers are going to run up and take a group shot, I think, and then we'll dismiss everybody to go forward. Desiree?
But first of all, I'd like to give the gentlemen a warm applause, please, for that interesting panel discussion.